Hello there and welcome to Improve Your Voice. My name is Darren McStay and today we're going to be taking a look at the voice of Miley Cyrus.
Once you have your drink, you end up smoking.
Now, Miley Cyrus has been quite a controversial pop artist for some years now. I think when she started out, she was on the Disney Channel as a child actor, a bit of a child star, so she's been popular and famous her whole life, which kind of means she's been in the public eye, which kind of means she's been using her voice a lot through her entire life. And the first thing that strikes me when I listen to Miley Cyrus is her vocal quality and the kind of huskiness that she has, that natural sound. It just sounds a bit rough. It sounds a bit damaged. But that doesn't necessarily mean it is damaged. There could be like numerous reasons for that quality. And I've noticed that I've come across people who sound like that just because of their genetics, and that's just the way they're built. With Miley Cyrus, there could be a few reasons. She famously quit smoking because it was affecting her voice, and maybe that had actually caused some damage. But she's got the technical ability to sing really well, so she can sing through it. So she knows how to sing, but now because her voice is that way, you know. Also, this kind of huskiness can happen if a baby is born prematurely, and they have, well, they used to anyway, they'd have a tube put down their throat, and because the infant is so young, and you know, there's been times where damage has happened and then the person has a kind of husky voice the rest of their life. So whatever the reason, I think her voice is unique to her, and I believe that, you know, some people find this husky thing quite sexy. I think it's quite, you know, nice to listen to because it's different, it's textured. But let's take a little listen now, and I want to talk a little bit more about her voice.
You know, once you have your drink, you end up smoking. And I've become the face of a lot of things, kind of.
Now, one thing I'd like to talk about with Miley is her structure, her facial structure. This is not necessarily where she's getting the husk from. Of course, the whole makeup is doing that, but her teeth are kind of always on show, both top and bottom pairs, and so she's got big, thick lips as well, and they're always sort of shaped forward. It's almost like she's shaking like this. Her cheekbones are quite high, and you know, her face is long this way from what I'm seeing, and so this is certainly going to have an effect on how well she sounds, whether it's speaking or singing, because she's shaping air to leave her face a certain way, and you can hear she speaks through her teeth a little bit.
Against my will, I guess, from my opinions, when you're someone in my position, your opinion becomes your identity, and it also becomes kind of almost like a...
Okay, yeah, so you know, she's obviously from the States, so her vocal placement is further back here, and so she has to kind of project a little, and what happens, because she's got her teeth like this and she's shaping her lips and they're quite sort of prominent, very different to the way I use my instrument, this thing's happening, and you know, there is this thing with the American accent that it's quite guttural. It's kind of right in the back of the throat and up into the nose, so a lot of air support gets used to throw the voice forward, and she's quite loud, so I guess she's naturally got a tendency to, you know, allow air to just flow out through her mouth. And of course, if it's shaped, she's talking through her teeth a lot, and her lips are like that, then she's creating this channel like a trumpet to send air forward, and that might just be how she's developed through being around as she's being, but being the fact that she's a singer, always been an entertainer, so she's really clearly articulating, even though this huskiness, which is probably more down to do with her vocal folds themselves, is coming from.
You kind of become this like preacher, or you become this, you know, they don't really let you just always have your own opinion. So I've decided to start telling people, I live my own lifestyle. Alcohol was never my problem. There was other things that I end up, you know, I like to go up. So she's
doing this interesting thing with her shoulders, and I've noticed this. She kind of dips her head down and her shoulders are up like this, and she's kind of explaining herself. Now that has an effect, right? If you bring your shoulders up and tuck your neck in, that's actually restricting things, right? Because you think about the shape of your body, and the lungs are in here, and the shoulders, there's a lot of muscles that connect from your head to, you know, your shoulders and up through your neck to your larynx. And so in a sense, she's tightening that up. And I wonder that it's quite possible that by creating these restrictions and tensions may have an effect on that huskiness. That's very possible, but you know, I don't think with her necessarily. But you know, if you are restricting muscles, they're not as free as if you just relax everything around here. And so the way she's presenting herself, she's got these teeth like that, she's got the lips that are really big, and a kind of husky sound, which is coming from the back. I sound a bit more like a New York person, but I'm not looking at her accent. And she's, you know, dipping her head, and it's kind of harsh. But see, I can almost put that sound on. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's damage or trauma or genetics even. It could be just her posture. So there's something to think about. If you're someone who might have this voice and it feels a little bit croaky, maybe it's just in your posture, in the way that you're sitting or standing. And so these are things that I'm just picking up by watching her now.
I now just avoid really.
But one great thing about her is, even though there's this huskiness here, and even though she's putting us, you know, moving into this sort of awkward position, she's still got a very clear voice. It's still very full. It doesn't sound breathy, even though it's husky.
Drinking, because I like to wake up at 110%, but it's never really been my problem, and I could see myself having a drink of celebration in the future, but I get so fucking hungover now that I'm like, why would I celebrate with, like, just feeling like a volcano's erupted in my brain, you know?
My brain. Yeah, I get this feeling that even though she's placing her voice right real far back in her throat, that she sends a lot of like energy into her cheekbones, and I think her structure and the way she is built with these, you know, these teeth that are kind of on show, and this forward energy that she uses in her voice. So she's keeping the air placement here, but she's sending things from her gut forwards. And this is just what creates her like own natural dynamic kind of sound, I guess. You know, we're all different. We've all been brought up with different habits, different accents, different parts of the world. And, you know, it really affects us. It could be down to the way we walk. It could be down to the, you know, the structures in our society. The world is a big place, and you can go from one city to the next and hear a completely different sound, different accent. Again, I've not looked into where she's from. I've not looked at her age or who her parents were, because that's really not what I'm looking at. But I bet if you do look into those things, you often find some similarities with others from those places. So it'd be interesting going forward, if you're a Miley Cyrus fan or you wanted to learn a bit more about how to sound like her, is to look into her hometown, where she's from. Maybe look into her parents and what they do, and look at her friends and relatives, and, you know, see what similarities they might have in their vocal tones and the way they speak. So that's something you can do for yourself if you want to avoid getting any huskiness in your voice and you want to clear that out. Perhaps look at your posture and finding relaxation in your neck and shoulders. And if you want to sound more like her, yeah, like I said, do some research on her and her friends and see if there's any physical traits that might affect the way she's actually presenting herself vocally, as well as, you know, as a personality. I hope that's been interesting for you. I've not done one of these for a while. I'm going to be continuing to do more coming up soon. That was Miley Cyrus, a quick brief review, and I'll be seeing you very soon. I'm Darren McStay. This is Improve Your Voice, and until the next time, look after your voice.